Welcome to this explainer. I want you to just imagine something for a second. Something so massive, so aggressive, and honestly so deeply ambitious that it literally permanently altered the balance of global power. Today, we're looking at the absolute greatest infrastructure transformation in human history. And as you'll see, this is a story that's no longer just about pouring concrete or building bridges. It's really about the very future of global power.
1980. I want you to try and picture what the world looked like back in that year. At that time, China was still remarkably poor. We're talking millions of people living in really underdeveloped villages. The roads were mostly broken. Their cities lagged literally decades behind the West. But then, an absolute explosion of development happened. Today, China builds more skyscrapers than any other nation on Earth, and their megacities, well, they look like something pulled directly out of a sci-fi movie.
Part 1. Rise, the humiliation that changed China.
Okay, let's dive into this, because to truly grasp the sheer scale of this modern superpower, we have to understand the profound collapse that came right before it. Just look at this rapid descent. Throughout the 1800s, Western powers were repeatedly invading Chinese territory, basically crumbling the empire. By the 1900s, the nation was entirely trapped in poverty, civil war, and severe famine. And by the 1970s, it was a complete economic disaster. Entire generations were growing up with absolutely nothing. And this led to a pretty terrifying question. How exactly did a civilization with thousands of years of dominance become so devastatingly weak? Well, the answer to that question brought about the 1980s and a massive economic shift initiated by their leader, Deng Xiaoping.
You see, Deng understood a really harsh, undeniable truth. Armies alone just didn't dictate a nation's strength anymore. Real power comes from industry, from technology, from infrastructure, and ultimately from economic domination. This one singular realization drove China to make a decision that would absolutely shock the world. They were going to rebuild the nation from the ground up, no matter the cost.
Part 2. The infrastructure machine. So in the 1980s, China finally opened its economy. Money started flowing in at historic speeds, and man, they mobilized immediately. We're talking construction crews working 24 hours a day, thousands of cranes just filling up the skylines everywhere. Entire neighborhoods would vanish and be replaced practically overnight. But why build so incredibly fast? Well, because infrastructure creates this relentless economic momentum. Think about it. Step 1, better roads move goods faster. Step 2, deep-water ports drastically increase export volume. Step 3, these sprawling railways connect isolated industries. Step 4, massive power grids supply the electricity needed for factories. And finally, Step 5, futuristic cities attract top-tier talent. China basically scaled this exact 5-step system to a level humanity had literally never witnessed before.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer unbelievable scale of that momentum. It produced something completely staggering. In just a few short decades, China built over 40,000 kilometers of high-speed rail. Let that sink in for a second. That is a larger network than the rest of the entire world combined. While places like the United States and Europe were struggling to build even a fraction of this, China was laying down tracks across mountains, across deserts, and right through their megacities. 350 kilometers per hour. That is the blistering speed these bullet trains travel. But make no mistake here, this extreme speed isn't just about moving tourists around quickly. It is entirely about national control. It's about deeply integrating these giant economies with smaller cities, expanding businesses faster, and really asserting technological dominance over the very landscape of the country itself. So how exactly did they do it? Well, the real secret to their incredible speed is centralized power. The state has this unprecedented ability to instantly acquire land, mobilize vast amounts of labor, direct basically unlimited state funding, and secure an endless material supply. Everything moves through one centralized system. It is a highly coordinated mechanism that simply overrides the typical delays you'd see in other political systems.
And honestly, nowhere demonstrates this transformation better than Shenzhen. Back in 1980, it was literally just a small fishing village. Today, it's one of the most advanced technology hubs on planet Earth, home to absolute giants like Huawei, Tencent, and DJI. They basically engineered an entire ecosystem of AI surveillance, smart traffic, and massive robotics industries. China essentially stopped simply copying the future, and they started inventing it.
Part 3. Reach, going global. But what actually happens when a machine this powerful runs out of things to build at home? Where exactly does all that industrial momentum go next? Well, think back to 2013. That's the year everything expanded far beyond China's borders. The year they launched what is arguably one of the most ambitious global master plans in human history.
The Belt and Road Initiative. This is a massive, sprawling global network stretching all across Asia, Africa, and Europe. Chinese companies began constructing huge ports in foreign nations, building rail systems across entire continents, and funding massive energy projects in developing countries. The primary goal here is to reshape global trade corridors so they flow directly around Beijing. And as you might guess, this severely alarmed Washington. Because infrastructure, well, it creates very deep economic dependency. China was clearly no longer just a regional power, they were preparing for immense global influence.
Part 4. The hidden costs.
So the crucial point is, a transformation this violent and this fast absolutely does not come without a dark side. Moving at this breakneck speed carries some really heavy burdens. Local governments over there are now carrying enormous, crushing debt. There are entire apartment complexes and infrastructure projects sitting utterly empty. You've probably heard of the infamous ghost cities. Add to this a declining population, extreme environmental pollution, and severe resource depletion. A lot of critics strongly argue that China simply built far too much, far too fast.
Perhaps the most poignant example of this immense sacrifice is the Three Gorges Dam. It is, without a doubt, one of the absolute largest engineering feats ever attempted by humanity. And yes, it generates a staggering amount of electricity. But it also permanently altered ancient river ecosystems and forcibly displaced millions of people from their homes. China's spectacular rise was definitely paid for with enormous human and environmental costs.
Part 5. Rivalry, the ultimate contest.
For decades, America absolutely dominated the world economically and technologically. The US dollar controlled global trade, and Silicon Valley shaped almost all innovation. But China's meteoric rise has completely changed that global equation. Infrastructure has literally become a geopolitical battlefield. While China builds these global ports, the USA responds by forming strategic alliances. While China expands massive rail networks, the USA drastically strengthens its semiconductor export controls. While China pours endless state funds into AI, America is fiercely racing to maintain its historical tech leadership. We are no longer looking at simple economics here. This is a highly tense, incredibly high-stakes contest for the very future world order.
And this brilliantly illustrates the real secret behind China's relentless execution, their timeline. You see, China plans in decades-long national strategies. Everything from transportation to AI to energy, it's all integrated into one massive long-term vision. By contrast, other nations are often constrained by short-term, 2 to 4 year election cycles, where long-term projects can be endlessly debated or just completely canceled with every new administration. But it is essential to look at the reality of where global power currently sits today, because the United States still holds formidable dominance in some highly critical sectors. America maintains unquestionable leadership in advanced semiconductors, cutting-edge aerospace, advanced software ecosystems, and highly sophisticated military systems. The U.S. also has this deeply entrenched network of global influence that is going to be incredibly difficult to unseat.
Simultaneously, China's path forward is, well, it's anything but guaranteed. They're facing some massive hurdles right now. An aging population that really threatens their labor force, a looming economic slowdown, growing global resistance to their Belt and Road projects, ongoing trade wars, and ticking debt crises. The momentum of the 1980s just cannot last forever, and China has reached a highly dangerous limit.
Think back 40 years ago. Very few people believed a poor, broken nation could transform into a futuristic superpower. Yet today, the whole world watches their every move. Some people look at China and see incredible inspiration. Others look at it and see immense danger. But absolutely no one can ignore what has actually been accomplished. The question is no longer about how they did it.
The real question, the one that will honestly define our lifetimes, is what happens next. Will this unstoppable infrastructure machine allow China to completely dominate the future? Will the United States leverage its technological supremacy to maintain global leadership? Or are we entering an entirely new, unpredictable era of fractured competition? The concrete has definitely been poured, the battle lines are completely drawn, but the end of this story is still unwritten.